Live, reminding you of your personal genius and how you think in order to actualize what you desire.
Hello, hello, hello. It's an honor to always be here with you. For those who are viewing live, for those who get to look at this podcast later in the week, or for that matter, months later, and realize, oh my goodness, there's something that's inspiring about what I've just experienced. That may be you. Hopefully, there's also something instructive where you walk away with tools, and that's our aim. LEAD stands for Leadership Excellence and Achievement on Demand. We here at Lead Live believe that every one of us has the capacity, and of course, in our unique ways, to be the executive of our lives. And so we promote you being the chief executive of your life. And the individuals we ask and we're honored to have join us as guests on Lead Live are those who are doing it. They're examples. Yes, they're very diverse. They are very mindful and they are intuitive. They leverage some of the key mental faculties that ensure they continuously improve their own personal programming so that they get to the place that they believe is really integral to their vision. They start with the vision, they move with plans, they have key priorities, they codify into goals, and they manifest because they understand some of the fundamentals of just the universal laws without even knowing that there's a universal law of vibration, of attraction, of oneness, of compensation. It is so, so powerful. Today, we are honored. We have a walking genius, very humble spirit. Her name is Pamela Marshall-Koons. She's an author and she's a corporate yoga instructor. Yet she's far more than those things that she do, or she does, I should say. And the topic we have today, thanks to her, is embracing a corporate culture of peace. Who is this woman who's also the CEO with at at the Wellness Network? I'm going to ask her to come on board. But as we do, and as I thank Jethro for bringing her into the studio, I want to honor the fact that she is very mindful about the importance of enlightening all of us, those who get to hear the various stories and advice that she herself provides through her own lived experiences and those of other remarkable individuals, global leaders in the area of health, wellness, holistic living. We want to thank her for doing that important work that gets us to a much more spiritually grounded place, definitely peaceful place. So she is all about being the spiritual leader that she chooses to be. But also reminding us that we are at our essence spirit, energetic forces that get to live the lives that we imagine. And in fact, we're doing it all the time. The key question is each one of us imagining what works for us? That's the powerful piece. So it's an honor to have you here, Pamela. Thank you for joining us. How are you?
I'm so enjoying listening to you.
Oh,
You could just keep going.
oh, it's my honor to have you here, especially since you are dedicated to helping people find peace through forgiveness. So before we launch in to getting more details about you and having you share your perspectives and your learnings and experiences, can you tell us something about you that most people would not know? They wouldn't find in social media. And yet it really is at the core of who you are.
I think I must answer that question the way I answered it when I was being interviewed for a job as a television news reporter. The news director asked me, what did I consider myself? A reporter, or a Black woman?
Mm,
And I thought, this
mm,
may be a trick question, but I only have one boss. So I said, I am what God made me first.
mm,
I elected to be a journalist. And Dr. Webb, I believe that we all are peaceful beings. We
mm,
all have peace at our core. And so
mm,
that's who I am. I am a person who, with a desire to embody what peace looks like,
mm,
even when things are not going the way my mortal vision thinks that they should go. But how do I model that I trust the process? I trust the power of the universe. I trust the power of my breath and the power of my words, even as I react in a particular situation.
mm. That word react is powerful because, as I'm sure you've heard, there's a distinction between reacting and responding. And some people have the strong belief to guard against reacting because it's purely and only emotional versus responding, which is much more of a balance, pre and more in favor of the intellectual, the cognitive, being determined how one moves, how one responds to anything. Can you speak to that? I have some strong views, but I don't want to unnecessarily convey them right now. What are your thoughts? You use the word react, which I think is powerful.
Yeah, Dr. Webb, we are the products, you and I, of some very, very strong, powerful women who embodied the ability to persevere and endure. There were so many times that those women could have reacted, but sometimes they were quiet, not because they couldn't say more, because there's an African proverb that says silence is a language too. And in that silence, it gives us an opportunity to draw on inner strength and then call on those powers in a spiritual way. Sometimes I think we want to uh, be so much in the 3D that we
Mhm,
forget about the powers that are much greater than even
mhm,
what we can do as we pray for our communities, as we pray for our immediate families, our children, our entire bloodlines, those that we will never see.
mhm,
That is understanding the power of the vibrations and the words that I say. Because when we think about the creation, in the word it said, there was a voice that said, let there be.
mhm.
And in at the end of the let there be, what was said happened.
Mm,
So when we think about this breath and the power of these words that we speak, every word that you speak, you're planting a seed. And that's the goal, is helping everybody to understand. You're not just talking. You may be just talking just to hear yourself talk, but it's creating vibrations.
mhm, mhm,
And I'm a farm girl, grew up in the country. So I know that planting one kernel of corn will net you a lot of corn ears on a stalk.
mhm,
Or planting one apple seed will net a tree that will have many apples on it, and each of those apples will have seeds. So if we think about our words that way,
mhm,
I think people would be more careful about what they say. And sometimes silence would be their first
mm,
reaction.
mm. You said so much there that went far beyond even what I thought you might say.
Hmm.
And I am so deeply appreciative.
What did you think I was going to say?
I thought you were just going to react to the word react and respond. And what you did is you went deeper. And that's what we love here at Lead Live. Folks, you going deeper. So, what did you say? Um, one of my many takeaways is remember that we are constantly in the act of creation. Our words, our deeds, even our feelings are transmitting, creating vibration. And as a result, things are created. That's it. That's powerful.
Yeah.
And you said you grew up in the South. And if
Yes.
I understood correctly, initially in Jackson, Tennessee, is that correct?
Correct.
And so you got to be part of communities, broader community, culture, where the whole notion of farming, of living in certain kinds of conditions, enabled you as a child to understand the power of what you do now has a season and it bears fruit, it bears results. How did that influence you? Are you aware of how it influenced you growing into adulthood?
Well, I really thank the creator for positioning me there. Growing up in a four-room house with no indoor plumbing, I would think the stork must have got tired when it was flying and just dropped me because I know I'm not supposed to be here. What am I doing here? But Dr. Webb, that's where I first fell in love with the news
Mm,
because we used newspaper in the toilet, in our
mhm,
outdoor toilet. The white people up and down our road would save their newspaper for us because that's what we used as to the white people that my mother worked for, cleaned houses for. They would save their newspapers for us because that's what we used as toilet paper. But I got a chance to read. I got a chance to
mm,
touch. I got a chance to um, see another world that was way outside that little toilet that I was sitting in, way
mm,
outside that little shack that I grew up in. And the grounding is so critical in our lives. I
mm.
think that's part of where we've lost our way is we're no longer grounded. And when we say grounded, really connecting where we came from. That's where we
Mm,
came from, the dirt, all of us.
mhm.
And to
All
have
of
a yeah,
everything.
yeah. Um, in the country, you get to look up and actually see the stars. Do you know how many people in the United States of America who've never seen stars because they live in cities? And how we would look at the Big Dipper, and my mother would say, it must be going to rain because the Big Dipper is tilted. And it would rain. But Benjamin Banneker, who was the engineer, the planner who laid out Washington, D.C., a self taught man, a free Negro, um, laid out Washington, D.C., but it said that he spent many of his nights just lying on his back, looking up at the stars, gazing at the
Mm,
stars. And that's where he gained his wisdom.
mm,
So what did it do for me? I just know that God gifted me with something that you can't get in sheetrock.
mm,
And I carry that with me today.
mm,
Seeing my father strive, seeing my mother not have time for postpartum depression because she was pregnant again, because I'm the 11th of 13, and making a meal out of nothing.
mm,
And their perseverance is why what do I have to complain about? Really and truly, what do I have to complain about? And then
mm,
also understanding, Dr. Webb, it was complaining that caused the children of Israel to be on a 40-year journey that was only supposed to take 11 days. But because of complaining, it took them longer to get there. And I don't want that to be my story. So I try to
mm,
remove that negative energy of complaining out of my conversation.
mm,
And truly, as we say at the end of yoga classes, namaste. The light in me greets the
mm,
light in you.
mm. Would you restate that?
Namaste is what we say at the end of yoga classes, and the translation is the light in me greets the light in you, which
Mm,
simply means I want to see your light because you do have one. And if
Mm,
my light is shining and I connect with your light, peace,
mm.
then that can shift the atmosphere. I was told once I had a boss and they said, he never acts ugly when you're in the room. I don't know. Thank God for the presence of peace. I want that
Mm,
to happen. I
mm,
want that to be the commentary. She feels like peace. She
mm.
looks like peace.
Mm.
And she inspires me to be at peace.
I love it. I was gifted in my 20s. I just turned 64 on October 13th. I feel so, so honored to still be here.
You're beautiful. How
Oh,
many? How
it's
many years?
64.
Oh, you're amazing looking.
Oh, well, takes one to see one. Well, in my 20s, one of my birth mother's sister called me, and I didn't grow up knowing her. I hadn't seen her in many years, and her spirit, I honor her throughout my life. She shared a lot of things with me, some of which I knew and I wasn't supposed to know because they're supposed to be family secrets.
Mm,
I was reared in foster homes, so
okay.
I wasn't supposed to know some of the facts of the family. And
Mhm.
so as she's sharing, because she wants me to know, and I didn't know that she was dying.
Mm,
Um, it was just a pleasant call, and she's telling me about her history. She's telling me about some of the family history, some of the stuff that's not welcoming by anyone, and some of the stuff that's quite remarkable and extraordinary, and probably would be welcoming because it involves wealth, right? And people want to hear about wealth, but they don't want to hear about all the negative stuff.
right,
So she's
right.
giving me all this information, and I'm listening. She's telling me dates and times and locations, etc. And she's like doing a brain dump. And it doesn't occur to me to write this down, and at that time, the notion of recording was not even within my mindset. And so I wrote a few things down near the end, and she says, "Well, why don't you use your first name?" Because I was using Tina, my middle name, Tena. And I said, "My first name." I said, "Well, mm, most people don't know how to pronounce it, and I'm not even certain I like it." And so there was silence, and uh, silence was pretty long. It was more than 10 seconds. And the conversation up to that point was just fluid. It was just, she was telling, she was sharing. I was asking her why, what, and then it stopped. And I
Hmm.
said, "Are you okay? Are you still there?" She says, "I named you." I would have never known. And I said, "Really?" I didn't know because I didn't know the origin of a lot of things. And so I said, "Really?" She says, and the correct way to spell it is, and then she told me. And then she went on to say, I named you, and culturally, we didn't name you right away. And so that's why there was no name on my birth certificate. It was baby girl, not Webb, baby girl Mitchell. And
Huh.
Mitchell's not even our family name, is Enriquez Moat. That's a
Mm.
whole nother conversation. In any event, so she shares this with me, and then she goes on to tell me why she named me what she named me. L is the, and Nora is light. So culturally, you name a child about 30 days into their being so that you get a sense of who they are. So when you
Wow.
said that, I don't I rarely share that story. And yet it's like her spirit was here. I was reminded of it. And I honor her. And yet
Wow.
she, and the fact that my birth mother gave me birth when she had been harmed and she was just a kid, I honor her without a doubt. I don't know
Yeah.
if she's alive or not. And yet, this notion of, and the reality that my name means the light, I've always felt a responsibility. And the more information I get about whatever it is, reinforces the responsibility I have for living the way I live and
Yeah.
giving the way I give.
Yeah. 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 That's beautiful. That's
It's humbling.
beautiful. The light. Mm, it's
Yeah.
wonderful. I love
And
it.
part of your, if you don't mind me saying it, what I've learned, a little bit I've learned about your genius and moving in various spaces. And I'd like for you to share a few of those spaces. You don't have to share it all. You've been positioned, and perhaps you positioned yourself so that you could illuminate the best, not only living and being that peaceful state of existence, yet conveying through words and deeds by being in those spaces how the rest of us can do it and do it naturally. So, can you share a little bit more about spaces you've been in?
Any in particular?
Yeah, where you've been, because you're currently in Florida physically.
Right,
But
right,
you've
right.
been in different organizations, been in different industries, you've met with some of the folks who are considered to be the best and the brightest on the planet. And thank goodness some of those folks are also humble. So they understand that just because they're given all this accolade, they could fall down too, like any of us.
Yeah.
They choose to give. Can you share a little bit more?
Well, you know, in our little country church, there was a song that they sang. Use me, Lord, in your service. Draw me nearer every day. I'm willing to go all the way.
Mm,
And that is, someone pointed out to me that there's probably not 5 people in the United States with the combined experience that I have.
mm,
And I definitely, it was not of my doing.
mm,
It's definitely what God did
mm,
because there's such different industries. And my daddy, with his third grade education, I would often hear him say, "Your talent will make room for you." And I didn't know that that was a scripture.
mm,
And the scripture says, "Your gifts will make room for you and take you before men in high places." And the gifts, that's what God sends us here with. Um, so the abilities that God gifted me with to be able to get things done, and I would just get phone calls, and people would ask me if I would be interested in doing a certain job. I was sitting at my desk the day I got the phone call from the White House. I thought that it was a prank call. The woman said she was from White House personnel, and it was at the end of the day. So, White House, surely they would call it the beginning of the day, um, and ask. And before that, I had no idea. Another time that I got a phone call, and the person said, "Pamela Marshall, I understand you turned down an invitation to meet with the president." And I said, "No, I didn't." "No, you were invited to meet with the president and you didn't respond." That was Friday also, and the meeting is Tuesday. And I said, "Well, I saw that, but I thought they were just telling me where the president was going to be. I didn't think they meant it." So I said, "I have to be in North Carolina. I'm leaving Sunday for North Carolina." He said, "Well, if going to North Carolina is more important than meeting with the president of the United States, go ahead and go." I was like, "Well," he said, "what I need you to do is get your information in right now because you got to go through clearance, and then you need to change the flight." Well, I had my assistant to start working on that, and Delta Airlines does not fly into where the president was going to be in Iowa. And he said, so another phone call because we're going back and forth trying to figure this out. Saturday, so this starts happening on Friday. Saturday, he called me and he said, "Can you get to Little Rock? We'll have a plane to pick you up." I was like, so at the time, Dr. Webb, I was wearing my hair natural. I had just started growing out the relaxer, so I had the hair pulled back, had an afro puff. And I went to the wig shop. I said, and there was a black lady standing next to me. I said, "I'm trying to find some products to go on my hair. I'm going to be meeting with President Obama." She said, "Girl, you need to get a wig." So I got a cute little wig. And it turns out, I'm going to fast forward in this story because my wake up call, they missed my wake up call. I'm thinking that I'm waking up on my own because I needed to be at the airport at 5 a.m. And I look at the clock and it's 5 a.m. And I'm frantic. Like, oh my, how am I going to explain that I missed an opportunity to meet with the President of the United States? I'm frantic. I'm running around, running around, running. And I grabbed that wig, put it on my head. I went to see the President of the United States, no shower. I did brush my teeth. Got there because I called the pilot at the pilot's number, and he said, just get here because we got to get out of the air before Air Force One gets in the air because we got to clear the space. And I meet with President Obama and then was called and asked about applying for a position with the administration. And the lady said, what would you like to do? I said, I don't know, take the trash out. Be the President of the United States. What do you mean? What do I want to do? So that I still don't know who put my name on the list. To this day, I do not know who put my name on the list. I was not selected for undersecretary under Secretary Vilsack, but I was in the West Wing. I met with the president. I walked the halls, met with different groups of people. That's good enough for me. I'm just so thrilled to have even been considered to be a part of President Barack Obama's administration. I'm I'm good. So that was along with the other things, I've worked in transportation, in economic development, in housing, um, in healthcare, and have been in lead roles in all of those industries. And how did I grasp those different industries and what to do? Not of my doing. It was definitely God who positioned me there. And those jobs I did not apply for. It was just phone calls. Would you be interested?
You have a rich family history. And if we just talked about your family, I think we can go on for hours. So I want to just honor that, honor your parents for the love that they gave all of you unconditionally and the conditions that they put on you that inspired you to be who you are beyond your wiring, because we're all wired in a certain way. So our parents or elders or um, even ancestors don't dictate, they get to influence and we get to leverage them. And you've chosen to leverage them and leverage them big and your own experiences. And if I understand correctly, the title of your book that's coming out is The Art of Forgiveness and Expression of Peace,
Yes.
correct?
Yes. Yes.
Why? Why
Well,
that book? I love that title. Why that
thank
book?
you. Thank you so much. My third oldest sister contracted polio when she was 3 years old, and she slid on the floor like a snake because she lost the use of her arms and her legs. And growing up Pentecostal and being in the segregated South, um, not having access to proper health care, even though my parents would not have taken her to the doctor anyway because they believed in fasting and praying. And she regained the use of her limbs. And without going through the whole story, she became an artist in her 50s, or
Mm,
the art showed up in her 50s. She was already an artist, it was already there. It showed up in her 50s. And I was coming back, bringing her back home from one of her exhibits at a museum. And I said, when did you learn? When did you know how to do this? Because it was just freaking impressive to me. And she said, when I forgave Ma and God.
mm. Ooh.
I was like,
Mm,
forgave? Like, black folks didn't
mm,
get mad at God. We know better. What are you doing mad at God? What are you doing mad at your mother? And then she tells her story, which I write about in the book. But the next morning I wake up, and as my eyes open, tears stream down. And the Holy Spirit said to me, you have to tell the story of the art of forgiveness and be
mm,
prepared to live
mm,
that life of forgiveness and peace through forgiveness.
mm.
Research says that 61% of people with cancer have unforgiveness issues. Stress is causing us to be sick. It is costing the United States economy $300 billion a year. 95% of doctor visits are stress and rumination and worry about the future and bringing the past into the present.
Stress is the number one cause of disease.
It is.
Number one. Doesn't matter what research study, what scientist comes out with the new study results, it's the number one cause of disease. We
And,
address that. Go ahead, please.
well, when you think about our workforce and
Mhm.
how we're not addressing it,
Mm.
millions of people don't go to work every day. And then now, Secretary Gutierrez had already talked about stress being um, impacting the United States economy even before COVID.
Mhm.
Doctors said during COVID and now that the medical healthcare profession is not prepared to deal with the fallout of the emotional aspect of COVID, the stress of COVID. And
And
then we keep seeing these shootings that are happening in our schools. We're not addressing stress. Research has shown that stress is lowering the IQ level of our children. Stress and then poverty. So children who are under the stress and they're poor, their IQ levels on average are 15 points lower than other children. How are they supposed to matriculate through all of this and we expect them to achieve? We're not addressing the epidemic of stress. We talk about a vaccine for COVID, vaccine for this, vaccine for that, but we're not dealing with the emotional challenges that Americans are having today, and I dare say around the globe. We
then
hear
we
about the war.
penalize people when they have stress,
Oh,
when they have
absolutely.
mental challenges.
55% of people, the World Health Organization says that 55% of the people incarcerated in the United States of America have mental health challenges. 55%. Yet, and then I would tell you that 99% of the homeless people in America have mental health challenges. They're not homeless.
Mhm.
You would be homeless if you couldn't meet your mortgage. That's homeless. When you're walking the streets and you're pushing a basket and you can barely move, that's not homeless.
Mhm.
That's mental illness. And under the Reagan administration, when all of the mental health hospitals were shut down,
Oh, that
and
was.
we collectively have not stood up and said this needs to be back in place,
Mhm.
I will tell you, I'm embarrassed that we're more concerned about what's happening in other places and we're not helping American citizens. That's embarrassing to me
Mhm.
because while we have on our currency in God we trust, in that word it says charity begins at home, then spreads abroad. If we want to look at human rights issues on other soil, we must have the human rights issues in the United States of America corrected, and we haven't done that.
You've suggested this, the answer to this, and I'm going to ask anyway. From where does peace emanate?
Well, Dr. Webb, um, those who are in the faith-based communities know that as Christ left, one of the last things that he said, "My peace I give to you." So if you don't believe in the religious aspect, when a child is born, and when you see children on the playground playing, and they may have an altercation, and they get over it, and they're back in the sandbox playing, the learned behavior to hold on to anger, to have a spirit of resentfulness and grudges, those things are learned. I wish that we paid more attention to helping our children understand as much as they can the spiritual aspect of their activities
Mm.
more than making sure that they have a cute little birthday party, a sweet 16 party, this party, that party. We're not doing anything for them of substance.
Mhm.
And that's why our children are in such bad shape in our country. African American children in particular. Suicide is the number one cause of death of African American children. But between the ages of 5 and 15, what are we doing killing ourselves at 5 years old? because we have lost our way. We have come through too much in this country for our babies to think that they don't have anything to live for and they're committing suicide. We're dropping the ball. I look at you and you look beautiful today. But when we see young women out who are inappropriately dressed, I mentioned to a young lady at TJ Maxx, sweetheart, you should not have your belly out like that. Well, my pants keep going down. No, you need to wear a better top, a longer top. We have we have released, we have shied away from our authority to teach. And there's no excuse to say they won't listen because somebody will listen.
Yeah, it's interesting. In going through my head are images of parents with children, diverse parents, some in my family. But many are not in my family, these images of people I know. And across the board, they're so diverse and there's no one way. The beauty of those images, with one exception, was that the parents were patient. Yes, they were exhausted at times and didn't want to hear, didn't want to have to pay attention. They just wanted to sleep. They deserved to get some rest for a change, a relief. And yet, when the child acted out or did something, they were patient. They just smiled and said, you know the better way, one said. Another said, can you give me a little moment? I want to spend some time with my child from this meeting. It'll just take a half a minute. I'm like, and they're apologizing, coming back. I said, you never need to apologize to me. You did the right thing. You
Right.
focus where you should, which is number one on your child. And the meeting resumed. We actually saved 15 minutes. We didn't lose any time.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I think about others, and I think about this one instance. The child just wanted to be next to the child's parent. And the parent wanted that child in another room with the door closed and preferably locked, didn't want to know that child was there. This is my space, your space is over there. And I'm thinking, oh my God, that's so painful.
Yeah.
And it's not for me to direct or to say, I'm not that child's parent. But what I did in my own compassionate way, which was initially negated, and she has a right to negate it, was child just wants to be next to you. That's all. That child chose you, loves you, knows you love that child. That's all that is. And then in a
Yeah.
subsequent conversation, that person, primarily because of me, I don't think because of a change in mindset or attitude or feelings, allowed the child to be there. Child was so peaceful
Mm.
and attentive. Parents said, do this, the child did it. Child just wanted to be next to the adult. So you're right. We, through our own verbal and nonverbal, certainly through our feeling energy, convey you're welcome, you're loved, or just the inverse. And
Yeah.
I'd like for more of us to do just that.
Well, the piece, I think children pick up on our energy just like animals do.
Mhm.
You know, if you have a dog or a cat or a horse, you go horseback riding, they will tell you that the horse is going to pick up on your energy. So that's so important.
Mhm.
And where does peace?
Mhm.
Um, I think it should be our goal in every conversation that we have, in every interaction that we have. But we also have to be mindful that we have children that are acting the way that they're acting because of, they talk about the gut brain today. Some of what we're putting in our bodies will cause certain behaviors. And some children cannot help what they're doing because of things like red dye and yeast or the wheat, the bread that is causing inflammation in the body. So we have a diet,
Chemicals,
yeah,
foreign chemicals.
a diet that is loaded with things that cause inflammation,
Mhm.
and then there's the stress,
Mhm.
and children are responding to that's how they feel. But we're not being taught about that. And so children get labeled. Um, I think it is criminal that they look at third grade test scores to determine how many jail cells we need. That's
And yet it
criminal.
is true, but sometimes they look at other things, but also they create certain things, whoever they happen to be. And
Whoever
what
that
I'm
is.
speaking to are things that are documented without going to the documentation. There's evidence that there's policies, practices intentional to ensure that that prison industrial complex is a successful business,
Well,
not
and that,
unlike any other business.
yeah, because it should be alarming to Americans that America is only 4.4% of the world population, but we incarcerate 25% of the world's prison population are
Mhm.
Americans. And we're only 4.5% of the world population. And that's because our prisons have become mental health hospitals. But they get paid more when they can label them as criminals.
Mhm.
And we shouldn't be satisfied with that.
Mhm.
Because the documentation is there,
Mhm.
we should look for elected officials who want to treat Americans in a humane way. And not only
Mhm.
that, Dr. Webb, there's so many veterans that are incarcerated in the United States of America. Prisons have veterans court.
Mhm.
They have VA counselors who go to prisons because these people who raise their right hand to serve and protect this country, in my view, are not being protected. And how did they become criminals? You taught them to protect the country and they come home and you lock them up, or they're committing suicide at a rate of 22 per night.
Mhm.
Where is the peace?
Mhm. Mm.
Why isn't stress on the top of the list that companies and communities want to embrace? Because we're talking about saving lives. We hear the numbers about homicides,
Mhm.
but we don't hear the statistic that for every one homicide with a gun, there's 7 suicides.
Yeah.
A friend of mine's
Let's,
brother just did that 2 days ago.
I'm so sorry.
Called the police and told them that that's what he was getting ready to do. And he
Mhm.
pulled the trigger while he was on the phone with them. So we have all of these guns, and the focus is on homicides and school shootings. But suicide, guns are used in suicide more than they are used in homicides. What are we doing,
Mhm.
America?
Well, I ask you that question about from where does peace emanate? Not that there's one answer. I really want us to ask ourselves, how can we demonstrate peace internally? Because I believe that's where it emanates. Doesn't
Oh,
matter
yeah.
all the
Oh,
nonsense that
absolutely.
occurs.
Absolutely.
When we are at peace, in peace, and maybe seeking what we may call, and it will be unique for each person, a level of perfect peace, all of a sudden things shift literally on something much smaller than a dime.
Well,
When we,
you live close to water, and
Mhm,
so you've heard the waves.
mhm,
You've seen that relationship between the water and the wind.
yes,
But when you take long inhales and exhales and
mhm,
really pay attention to it, it makes the same sound. So the creator of the wind's movement and the ocean and the wind, that relationship, is the same one that created us, and the inhales and the exhales, and understanding the intricacies of the works that are happening within as we inhale. When we inhale, we're taking in oxygen, and we exhale and we release carbon dioxide. When you inhale and you hold your breath, there people think that you got to breathe because the body needs some more oxygen. No, you got to breathe because the body needs to release the carbon dioxide.
which is
If you,
poison.
which will kill you.
Mhm,
The same thing with thoughts.
mhm,
Thoughts are going to come, but if you hold on to them, you have to have a practice in place. Serena Williams, they said she used to hit 1,000 balls a day. And then I play tennis, and I was like, okay, well, I understand my tennis level is at the level of the balls that I hit a day. So is our peace practice. You have to have a plan in place. You do have to spend some quiet time.
Hmm.
You do have to understand how you have the authority to say to your thoughts, stop.
Hmm.
That's in the past. That's over. Because the cells in your body don't know any better. When you're in those horrible things that happened in the past, you continue to injure cells that weren't even around when the incident happened. Because we get new cells all the time. But when you let the stress of the past flood you, your body is feeling that same stuff all over again and releasing cortisol that's not good in the body. So it is about understanding being in the moment, being right where your feet are, enjoying the moment. It sounds like, what? But that's the only way we can do it. And you must have a practice of that. You must have a practice of silence. I start every day with minutes of silence, always 7, many times longer, but just being silent, being quiet. Thoughts come, but that's where I have the practice of moving them out of the way. And that practice comes into play throughout the day when things are happening, and then I'm like, whoa, 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 I'm right here. The sun's shining. What am I worried about that storm that is over? Let me enjoy my ray of sun because nobody can take that away from me or you or you.
So, our topic, my question to you, should peace be a thing, a state of being within workplaces, and why?
Well, considering it is costing your company money, when you look at the statistics, when you look at all of the research about stress, about absenteeism, about employee retention in our school systems, we're having teachers walking out every day. And so we're just having to get whoever they can get to teach. Employee retention is a huge problem. It's said right now in the United States of America, we have 11 million job vacancies. And if everybody that could go to work went to work that's not employed, that's still only 6.5 million people. So, how do you attract and retain employees? Because it costs you, turnover costs you, stress and mistakes cost you, um, interpersonal relationships cost you.
Hmm.
Should you? And people have vision boards or they have mission statements. And if your mission statement does not include
Hmm.
a corporate culture of peace, then you need to go back and revisit it because today, more than ever, peace should be at the top of your list. People
What does it look
perform
like?
better.
What does
What
it
does it
look
look
like
like?
in the workplace? What does peace look like in the workplace?
I saw an interview with a group of people at Google. One of the things that they do, um, they started meetings, started testing out 2 minutes of meditation before every meeting started. And they did that, and people gave positive feedback. And um, the head person, just to test out to see how the reaction, said, I don't know if we're going to keep doing this because I don't know if it's doing any good. And it was said that the person that they thought would be the most resistant to doing it said, no, I like it. Because, see, nobody wants to be in a state of unrest. Nobody wants that.
Hmm.
But many people don't know how to get to a place of peace.
Hmm.
So if you go to work and it's not there, you get home and it's not there,
Hmm.
then pretty soon somebody's going to be writing a prescription for you.
Hmm.
Psychiatrists are now admitting that medicine can't do everything. They're actually prescribing mindfulness. They're prescribing people take walks um, outside. Um, when when people are in a you function better. Your mind is clear. When you're walking outside, most people don't think about the leaves on trees having a fragrance, but the leaves release a chemical that's healing for the body. The
That's right.
sunlight, when the sunlight hits the skin, it lowers your blood pressure. Drinking plenty of good water. Um, when companies have events, make sure that what you're providing for your employees is good for their gut brain so that they can function well. And you know, why would you not? And I think, as anything else, as you well know, any kind of change must start from the top. It can't, because I think people are interested in what's happening to the bottom line. Well, when you understand that the lack of peace, the lack of healthy employees is impacting your bottom line, then I think people will embrace it more. I think they already are.
Beautiful. So you gave one example of Google with meditative practices before the start of a meeting. You talked about incorporating it within a mission statement, definitely in the core values. Any other way?
Yes, there are on demand sessions that can be made available to employees if they just need to take a 2 minute break, and allow them that space to take that 2 minute break, and maybe something that you've provided for them. Or, when you know that this culture that we're in is about all of us being at peace, you recognize that your coworker is having a moment. It gives you an opportunity to step back, even in their moment, and not take ownership of it.
Mm,
The first scripture in my book is, "Great peace have they which love thy law, and nothing shall offend them."
mm,
If I understand, if I understand that I cannot change the nature of an insect, then we must accept that we can't change the nature of other people.
mm,
So if you teach people acceptance, and for them to watch it from afar and not be offended by it, it helps to cut down on challenges that can happen in the workplace.
mm.
You're not mad at me. There's something else going on with you. So I'm going to let you be mad, but I'm not going to be offended. But you have to have a practice. You have to be able to guide people to that, and something that they can do on a regular, so that they can know that I'm in an environment that embraces this. And it's just like, when you put children on their Sunday clothes, or
Mm,
how they act differently.
mhm,
So imagine if we're all wearing peace,
mhm.
we'll act differently. We'll think differently about ourselves and about others, and about the most important thing that you do every day. You know what that is, Dr. Webb?
What's that?
Breathe.
Breathe. I knew you were going to say that. I think of a Qigong master from China who had to have been at least 7 feet tall. And it was a health related event, a conference slash fair in San Francisco back in the 90s. No, early 90s. And I was walking through. He's obviously from China, spoke very little English, in fact, spoke no English to me. His wife, who's from the States, called me out as I'm walking through there with almost like a football like look. I am in 2 PhD programs. I'm stressed and I'm working full time, and I'm walking through there looking for what may be helpful to me. Intuitively, I go there. I should have been in bed because I was in so much pain. And
Mhm.
his wife calls me over to him, and she asked if he could just do something with my body. And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? It's got a booth, and he never touches me. He just moves the energy around. He changes the nature of the vibration. And my shoulders that are literally up like this and are hard as a rock, they relax in less than 30 minutes. And it's as though I never had the stress.
Wow.
I'll never forget that. That he didn't ask for any compensation. He was in his 70s. It looked like he was probably about 30 something years old.
Yeah.
I was magical.
Wow.
And just was deeply more appreciative than I. And I was pretty appreciative that I allowed him to do what he did. Oh my God.
Well,
It was the most.
the
Go ahead.
body is made up of energy. Guess what else? Because we didn't have many toys, but we would rub our feet on the rug and touch each other and see the sparks.
Yes.
Well, you don't see that happening much anymore.
Yeah.
So I Googled it. and it said that what the electricity in the body does, it helps the cells communicate with each other. But look at what we've done to reduce the electricity in our bodies. And it talked about the fabric softeners and the
Yes.
hairsprays.
That eliminate that. Mhm.
Yes. So I wonder how much of that is contributing to whatever may be going on that's not good in our bodies because we don't have that natural communication that should be there with the cells in our bodies. Isn't that
I'd
amazing?
love to have you come back because there's much more to talk about, especially as it relates to the work environment, whether they're corporate environments, they're nonprofit, they're municipalities, all these different environments, educational environment, where literally people can meet all the major benchmarks that are critical
Mm. Hmm.
through peace. Because there's an assumption that, this piece is really kind of, interesting, touchy-feely, but will take away from the bottom line. When in fact, the right kind of peace in an environment accelerates engagement, ensures people want to be there, and they literally solve problems that no one even knew existed before they even come about because they're focused on that bottom line, that ultimate vision. And they want the organization to get there efficiently because they've been honored. They feel
Yeah.
appreciated. And they already had an appreciation that led them there that's just been reinforced. So I
And
definitely,
as I said, it's causing people to be sick. You
Mhm.
can't do your best work when you're sick, and you're not coming to work when you're sick. And they say that, of course, you've always heard people say, um, people don't quit jobs, they quit bosses. Yeah.
And environments.
And environments. Yeah.
Yeah, even if the so-called boss or facilitator of that division or whatever is kind or remarkable, if the environment is harmful, people are in survival mode. I got to get out of that.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
how do we ensure? So, I want us to go deeper next time. I am so pleased that the audience got an opportunity to meet you, to experience you. And I have no doubt that I'm going to hear some things from people when they get a chance to look at this video fully and not be on their lunch hour or the middle of the afternoon and on the East Coast, etc. And so thank you so much for choosing to be you
Mm.
and the vision that you have. Wow. We'll talk about that much more. And ideally, when your book comes out, we can go into deeper
Well,
conversations.
and they can pre order the book now by going to PamelaDMarshall.com.
Could you put that in the comment,
I
Jethro?
will.
That is
Hmm.
PamelaDMarshall.com.
Hmm.
Marshall with 2 L's.
Two L's, correct.
Mhm.
And when they pre order, they get an autographed copy of the book
Awesome.
and 7 edible scrolls, scriptures about forgiveness on little
Edible
wafers.
scrolls?
Hmm?
Edible scrolls?
Edible scrolls, yes.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you, Jethro. Well, anything you'd like to share to close this out?
I want to thank you so
Mhm.
much for inviting me to be here. I want to thank all of those who are watching and helping us to understand that um, our health, our wellness, our mindfulness is in our hands.
Mm.
It's your breath, it is your vessel that you are given the responsibility to take care of it. One breath at a time. Stay in the moment and be grateful. Thank you.
It's an honor.
Thank you so much.
Folks, it will be, goodness, a transformative experience when, not if, when we choose to lead and be in peace. And the emphasis is on be. And when Miss Marshall comes back, we'll talk about the power of being. Right on.
Thank you.
Thank you.